Everyone. Good evening, everyone. My name is Deanna Swope. I am your host for today's Find Your Truth. I would like to invite this panel, but before we go ahead and proceed, I just would like to give an image description to those deaf-blind community folks, just to provide access as well. I'm a Black woman with long locks coming down to the right side of my body. I have black and gold rimmed glasses. I'm currently wearing a blue satin blouse with a red blazer. And I also have a smartwatch on my left wrist, and behind me, I have a wood wall panel with a mirror behind me. Now, some of you are not used to seeing me either outside of my house. I'm currently at an Airbnb, so please bear with me if my Wi-Fi is a little freezing a bit. So today's panel, we are discussing the topic of healing heart, transformative journey through grief. So I think this is such a vital topic that we often do not have the conversation or access to resources of transforming through grief, the skills, the tools, the strategies of what we should do, having a support system, being able to sit with our grief. And individuals out in the community are not comfortable and usually have a hard time to talk about grief. We have two panelists. We originally had three. Unfortunately, John Sheeb could not make it due to Hurricane Helene, which is passing through his state. Hopefully, everyone out there in that area, Florida, Georgia, are staying safe and wherever you are. So now I'd like to call on Florence Pratt. If you'd go ahead and please introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Florence Pratt. I'm a Black woman. I'm wearing glasses with brown rims. I'm wearing a watch. I have on a black short sleeve shirt and I have my hair wrapped with a black wrap. I'm wearing stud earrings and that are studs. And you can't see my background, but it's blurred. But I'm in my home and I have white wall background. So again, you can't see me because I'm blurred. It has a blurry background feature added to it.
Thank you so much, Florence, for joining us. Now, Marianne, if you would like to go ahead and introduce yourself. Hi, everyone. My name is Marianne. I'm a white woman with a short sleeve. I have a black and gray background behind me, and I do use glasses. I guess you could say they're tan or teal colored. I have some bracelets on, some wristwatch, and a bracelet, and that's it. Okay, thank you so much for the both of you for joining us today and sharing your grief experience and sharing your truth. Some trigger warnings for the audience members. You may feel like this is heavy, but this is important information, and it's okay to not be okay all the time. I think it's important just to keep that in mind, as time heals all wounds, but that's at your own terms and time. I would just like to emphasize that you are your own healer. You are your own healer not based on anyone else's expectations. It is your time. Please, you don't have to subscribe to everyone else's time. You're healing on your own journey. So now, if you don't mind, if you could share some personal experiences or stories where grief has deeply impacted you that you did not expect, but it has really helped your personal growth and thrive. So if you can give some personal growth or positive transformation.
Okay, I'll start off. So first of all, thank you for inviting me as a panelist. Yes, some of this content might be triggering even for me, because my mom passed away 2 years ago, and it was quite tough for me to accept her loss. And it's still something I'm still grieving to this day. So therapy has helped a lot because I didn't have much support. It was just myself going through this journey. And so I would say that from time to time, I do have my moments. I mean, sometimes I'm fine and sometimes I'm not. I might just be sitting watching TV, and then I certainly burst into tears. Sometimes when I'm sleeping, I dream and I see my mom. Last night, I dreamed I was with her and I saw her in bed. She was sick. And I've had different experiences like that. And it's quite tough. Again, therapy has been helpful. But it doesn't solve everything. I do a lot of reading. And, reading books helps, but it's still a challenging experience. You know, um, with the grief, there's no start or stopping point. I mean, there's no, it's not like you're on a certain page and you just have to continue, you just have to continue on the journey. Yeah.
I do want to add, I want to do add something. I do understand what you're struggling with, Florence. Yeah, I enjoy reading books. I think less now. I don't have much time because I have three kids. Um, I don't have much focus time, but watching movies or TVs, I do struggle at times. Sorry, let me go back a little bit. So 6 years ago, my husband passed away. I was actually pregnant during that time, during his passing. So to be honest, grief is something I am grateful with. I'm grateful that I was pregnant and it helped me to eat. It reminded me to, push through in that moment. My husband passed away and I was so anxious to have my baby, losing someone and then I didn't want to lose my baby. So I really had to take care of myself. And I will admit I was numb at times. So yeah, watching TV and movies, I did struggle a little bit. I, trying to create relationships and seeing couples out in the public and the love that they have for each other was really hard. And my grief is just stages. There are stages to grief. Everyone goes through the various stages, as Deanna mentioned, as your beautiful story. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Yes.
Go
No,
ahead, Florence.
thank you. I like to add to that. There are different stages of grief. Absolutely. There's shock, there's anger. And for me, um, I first experienced a lot of shock. And luckily, um, I was on the floor when that happened and I had to be carried away to get help. And then later I was angry, I was screaming, I was mad at God. I was just incredibly upset and I was praying a lot for my mom and like I was just very angry. And I mean, I couldn't say I won't say it led to acceptance, but I did start it to maybe prepare for the future, thinking about other countries, thinking about like I live alone, so it made it even more difficult for sure.
Oh, yes, something. Yeah, definitely. So sorry. Did you want to say something, Marianne? I saw you raise your hand. The interpreters had to go back and forth between you and I. Did you want to finish your comment, Marianne? Yeah, just to mention about funerals. 2 years ago, um, one we celebrated our 1 year anniversary. We figured, me and my husband, we were trying to budget for our wedding or budget for for our baby. We figured the wedding would be later. So we were excited to have our anniversary, and then 2 or 3 days later, he passed away. So I had to plan a funeral, and it should have been a wedding celebration. And that really impacted me, and just looking at churches together, and it was just a very emotional moment standing up and planning for our wedding, and it broke down my mom. And my dad's family, of course, was so helpful. And I think that's the most important part. It's not easy. This is Deanna signing off. Each of you sharing your stories. And, no matter what, the big or small grief, we all have various levels of grief, the spectrum, the type of grief we go through with family members, their friends, even strangers, who, even with that person dying, that is still such a loss. People don't realize that you could have grief for that too, for any reason that may come up in your life. Various types of grief, maybe a family member to friends. Grief is grief. It impacts us in various ways and how it shapes the form of it, all of it. But at the same time, me as a Black woman, I was taught to carry on, to carry on and suppress my emotions to support everyone else around me and ignoring my needs and my emotional needs because we don't know how to handle our own and how to take care of ourselves. It's so easy to take care of everyone else and their emotional well-being before our own until suddenly we have a mental breakdown and we mask. We mask our grief, we sit in silence, and we don't want to burden other individuals who don't have the tools to help us process through that grief. And we don't have the tools as an individual. How can I, as an individual, show up? And will I be criticized for that? Would I be called? There's just so many anxiety driven questions that I found myself in a place where what I should go ahead and ask for help, period, regardless of what's going on. I'm like, I totally, like, for example, I totally get you have grief. Okay, but like, hello, what about me? Okay, let's move on. People say like you already went through grief, so why is it taking you so long? So we have to identify who is in our tribe, who is in our tribe, and yet who are the people who pull our energy. And that's where the personal growth is. That's when you know. You got to stop playing. If you keep going on, if you don't understand and support my well-being, then you have to let go of those relationships. And then you have to go through another stage of grief, right? Of letting go of those relationships that are not serving you. That's so awful. So, Marianne, did you want to add? This is Marianne, the stages of grief. Yeah, just as you mentioned, with relationships, good friends, childhood friends you may have, losing them. It's been close to a year, and it has been such a huge impact for me with my husband being gone for 5 years and my grief, my healing, seeing my friends pass as well. That those stages of grief are so different between each relationship, and the answer is just not easy. Yeah, I totally understand. So this is Deanna, which relates to my next question. How does losing a loved one impact relationships within families or social circles? And what steps can be taken to maintain connections during grief? What does that look like for each of you?
Okay, so for me, the biggest impact was with family. I mean, my family, they all live in different countries, as I've mentioned before. My mom's family didn't come to the funeral at all. None of them did. Yeah, none of them showed up. You all, I can see your faces. They didn't show
Wow.
up. I mean, the change and the impact on them. I think one of them asked for money. A cousin of them asked me for money for a plane ticket. And it's like, I'm living here in America and I still need a plane ticket myself, to attend the funeral. And they asked me for funds to attend the funeral. I mean, there was no one that checked on me. And I mean, absolutely no one from the family. And, my mom had a cousin that was left who did text me and was like, wanted to, who was basically head of the family. And I was the head of the family, not my dad. And my dad was pissed off and very upset and hasn't spoken to me in quite some time. I mean, and there's a group chat that I'm in, but I mean, it's been silent as far as people checking on me. And there was another cousin who we have been chatting every day, but the other ones, haven't checked on me um, or asked for money either. So sometimes I just say that I'm alone because when it comes to sharing, people are talking about resources and money, and it's like, and asking me for things. I'm like, I still lost my mom. Where were you? Where are you all now? In the support process, you're asking for things now. Leave me alone. And I'm not looking for them at all. They're just asking me for money and resources at this point. And as far as my social circle goes with my friends, I'm not even sure I can call them friends because I share with them and they say to me, stop complaining. Huh? And it's like, I'm not complaining. And it's just ridiculous, just like, even with my dad, they're thinking it's complaining. And I'm like, I'm not complaining. I'm sharing how I feel, and that's it. I'm just sharing how I feel. So I've just started to really keep a lot of these feelings and comments and things to myself and just pray because there's nothing else I can do there. I just pray for my strength, my support. I talk to God, and I have no one. I have no one. And my sister is very busy with her kids. And I think it's like she doesn't have the time to grieve because she was pregnant with my mom passed. And raising her son and daughter. And so again, it's just not easy. And so I think too, that maybe there's some avoidance in talking about it. And with me, it's more with the cousin, that one cousin I told you about, that support that I'm getting as far as us chatting and being able to share with that cousin. And I guess I can just say I have to keep going. I mean, I have to keep pressing on. I might cry, but I think about my mom's journey and how she would see me and how she sees me. And I do have Facebook friends. Some of them are in New York, and there's one woman I never even met, but she sent me some money as well as some support for the funeral services. And so we've chatted here and there, and I've never even met her, but she's been a support for me. She's been here for me. So that's been nice.
Deanna signing. Anyone in the audience, you're more than welcome to share your experience with us, and please go ahead. We'd love to hear from you. We just want to make sure we're taking self-care. If you're feeling triggered at any point, please remember to take care of yourself during this process. And as you just mentioned about people who are complaining, you know, that makes you take a step back and go back into your healing process. I'm trying to heal, and yet here you are complaining, which means I can't go ahead and share with you and be safe in this space. It's like that self-doubt of, okay, well, now I have to move on because you're expecting me to perform in a certain way and to be on and satisfy your needs and be comfortable where I can't even take care of my own. And just you mentioned sadness, especially when it comes to money. The irony is that when someone dies, it's immediately back into people showing their true colors. And it's always money, always is involved in some way. And you have to, divide, and it always divides people in that way. It when previously that wasn't an issue when you were together, it was fine. And then when people say, well, I don't got time for you, I'm busy, you lose that same person in a sense. And then grief, I feel like it's a catechism of healing. People say individualism. I'm okay. I'm all good. I can handle my grief. Yet, how are you to handle this grief? What are you gonna do for me? How are we gonna heal together? You need space. Communication is key. People tend to ignore themselves. How do it's so superficial and it's so layered within ourselves. We need each other to heal instead of doing this alone. Because if we're doing it alone, it's going to take a longer process to heal. Marianne? Marianne says, you're right. This goes back to communication. I think it's essential for all relationships, really. And as Florence mentioned, just not talking about it. I struggle with that, not talking about grief. And I can see with my husband passing, I still see people who say, like, do I talk about it? My husband's name is Mickey, sorry. So it was like, do I talk about Mickey or not? I'm like, I'm on eggshells around Marianne. If I do, is she gonna cry? And it's true. I'm like, no, I would love to hear anyone talk about my husband, about Mickey, so I can remember him and feel like we're bringing him back to life just for a short time and just remember are those memories together. I really would love that. He's alive here in spirit because we're talking about him. So there's no wrong answer. I know people come for various backgrounds and struggle with that, but I would love to hear people's memories and share their stories and say, hey, do you remember that one time with that person we hung out with? Like that in itself, it helps us, doesn't help us grieve. It just helps us love more. We have love to give. And I think that's just my experience. So I do want people to talk about him. I do want to hear stories, or maybe stories I've never heard. And the kids would love to hear that too. I know that my kids are young and they haven't met their father and they don't know their father, but it's just amazing just to see everyone else's behavior when they do talk about him. And my actually thinking about my kids, they do have tendencies of his behavior in some way, and it really helps me help. It really helps me heal and go through that process. And I enjoy that. So I try to stay positive, definitely. This is Deanna signing. Marianne, you make a good point how people walk on eggshells around death. They're tiptoeing like, oh, if I say something, will it trigger you? Will it bring something up? But yet people don't realize that part of healing is to talk about that person. It doesn't have to be a bad thing. It doesn't have to relate to trauma. You can just like, hey, do you remember this story? It can be a funny thing. And it's okay to laugh through grief, right? There's nothing wrong with that. The more you tiptoe around me, the more you're just talking about a ghost of someone who's was just a figment of our imagination or just no longer there. So the spirit can live on through us, through sharing our stories and memories, right? That's part of healing. That's part of healing. And how is that healing when you're not talking about someone? The person, this individual will always be in your heart and with you. They stay right there so close to us. And it's just like, who am I talking about? Do I bring up this person? It's just like, come on. It's like, do I do it? Do I not do it? Do I do it? It's just like a step back of grief, of the grief process, because you're continuously going, doubting yourself. And then I remember society's culture. How does our society's culture expect and influence individuals and how they are able to express and tolerate or go through grief? And what does that look like for your support system? I know Mary Ann, you mentioned wanting your friends or family, like, hey, let's talk about Mickey, talk about my husband. And they're just so shocked and not know, like, are you sure? Are you going to cry on me? Are you going to break down? Because I can't handle you breaking down. And it's just like the constant, like, they need reassurance, like, just go on. Let's just go on with it. And this is Mary. I just want to go back to the question about family and friends. It relates to what I've heard mentioned before. I want to talk about my husband, but I could just tell they're just my friends and family so uncomfortable and struggle with that. And yeah, in that moment, I may cry. And I know I have my kids around me and they don't want to see me cry. And they're like, why is mommy crying? Because they're only two or three. And I just don't want that to instill that emotion in them. So I take a moment for myself and cry. And my kid's like, why were you alone for a while? I'm like, I just need a moment for myself. I'm kind of frozen. I'm lost within my grief. That makes sense. So I do struggle sharing in those moments with my children. And I can see how my friends or some people, make an excuse of talking, or maybe they just need more time, or I need more time to share. And I see some friends who really do show up, but they have never left my side. They call me every day. They said like, "Oh, am I bothering you? Are you okay? Is it okay if I call you? What are you doing? What are you up to?" It's just like, yeah, give me a call. And looking back, I'm grateful for those friends who stuck by me for so long because I'm able to go ahead and sit and chat with them in moments. And I take my time just to sit and chat. And I know my kids are busy doing their things, and I'm always busy with my kids operating and ensuring that I can't, I'm not having a moment for myself. I'm having to take care of everyone else. I have to take care of my kids. So those moments where I can be with my friends, you know, I I kind of feel like I'm in isolation. I'm disconnected with myself because I'm on autopilot. I'm disassociating in a sense because I have to keep going. Luckily through grief, I found my people, I found my family, and it just takes time, honestly. It's the best place to be. This is Deanna signing. I just saw two Facebook comments, one from my sister, Elizabeth Ann Thursday. Yes, I completely agree with what Marianne is saying. Mickey, my last memory of him is playing basketball together. Every time I would touch a basketball, I just go back to those memories of me and I playing. That's what Marianne's sister said. Go ahead, Flo. Oh, so sorry. Go ahead, Florence. I saw you raise your hand, so the interpreters were speaking at the same time.
Yes. So I look back sometimes and I remember my mom loved to read. Um, and the last video I have in 2019 during Thanksgiving, it's just a little short video, but she's reading. And I'm looking at the video. And as I look at that video again and again, I just start laughing because she was happy. She was happy. But not on the video. I used to start, this is not on the video, I used to start dancing with her too. And it's just like, I would show dances to her and she's like, no. So, and she would teach me things and I would dance with her. And so really, it was, I have my moments. Again, I have my moments, when I'm just kind of having a moment of nostalgia and I'm talking to my sibling about my mom as well. And the two of us are chatting, we'll chat a little bit about her too. So yeah.
This is Deanna signing. Thank you, Elizabeth Ann, for sharing. And please, everyone else, add some comments on the Facebook. That's how we know that it's okay and to normalize talking about grief and talking about our loved ones. The more we push things aside, our emotions aside, we will never learn how to how to heal properly, right? Mental health is such a taboo. It's like we don't talk about that. But mental health is sort of the norm, but it's also pushed away, and you have to relate that to grief. It's the stigma, you know, grief is a stigma. But now, today, this the month of September, you know, everyone, it's Mental Health Awareness Month. But again, recently, there's so much grief going on. Unfortunately, this deaf individual who died to suicide because he had no access communication, yet we don't know how to handle this individual who was grieving this whole time and also being in isolation, and then realizing what happened to this person, and we're realizing having survivor's guilt. And so it's so important to check on other people. Hey, are you good? Are you okay? And yet people put that mask on and say they're good, I'm okay. Yet you need that person to check up on you. Like Marianne said, you need those people who are often checking on you, someone who's in your corner. And at the same time, I appreciate you checking in. It's a little bit much, but you have to decide how much support you need within your life. And that's important to remember. Okay. So we have another comment through Facebook from an audience member. Grief really takes a lot of time to process. It doesn't matter how much amount of time, as long as you have a support system. And this is from Emily Murphy. I wholeheartedly agree, Emily. Another comment from Maggie. We should normalize grief by talking about it, since grief will always be part of your story. Amen. We have a next question here. How does the digital age and the social media influence the grieving process? And what role does online support play in helping individuals cope with loss? As we just mentioned about that young man who died by suicide, and yet there are so many vlogs and outreach after that moment. But what happens before? What are we doing before and thinking ahead of planning ahead, preventing suicide or a mental health loss?
Oh,
Oh, so
me?
sorry, Florence. Yeah, you.
Okay. I joined a group on Facebook and um, I asked for prayers. I told them I wasn't doing well. And I told them that I share whenever I start doing better. And I've always mentioned, that friend from New York who I'd never met, but we chat on Facebook, and I think it's been maybe we added each other about 4 or 5 years ago, and she's been providing support since, and she's been there for me, and every day just checking in on me. I'll share kind of what's going on. Maybe I'm crying at the same time or something like that, but again, it's just like some people may not be on social media and so again, even therapy has been helpful, but it's good to check in on people make posts on social media too, and sometimes it's full of laughter. And I could say that perhaps I'd be more depressed if that wasn't happening. And And December is usually the worst time of the year for me, just because my mom's birthday is December 24th. So you add that, but then social media and people's posts and things like that are helpful during that process. So it's just like, how can I get some kind of support? It's just something to consider. And this is Deanna. So sometimes we get more support from strangers than we do family and friends sometimes, scrolling through social media. It's like,
Hmm.
yep, nobody's checking on me. Then I'm just going to look at social media and get that support myself. And sometimes that's the only way we can quote unquote survive, is to get that connection there when no one else is willing to hear us out in our immediate circles. So as soon as we post something about how we're feeling about ourselves, or we're not in a good mental space, people are immediately commenting on our post. That quick, we get a response of a check-in of, are you okay? And it's just kind of like, how can I get that from my family and friends that I already have? And so, yes, social media has its pros and cons. It's depending on our perception and how we utilize it. And again, maybe even should we depend on them to support us during this intimate process versus our family and friends? So again, social media has its pros and cons. But Marianne, what are some of your thoughts?
It's Marianne. As a society, I'm considered a widow. I was married and now I am labeled as a widow. Society, how they see widows are old women who have been alone for so many years, who have lost their husband. I'm a young widow, as you could say, and yet I'm still struggling to find support from that group for women who within the same age range who are young, who did not expect to be in such a short marriage. Where is that? It is so hard to find for myself to find that support system. There's some people who understand who have similar losses of relationships, but that they didn't expect that their partner would be gone and they were married for a short time. But having that core support system, my sister in that moment, who's been such helpful for me and really supporting me. And it's nice to see her in person. And back really into social media, I think I struggled. I really just disconnected from it. Just looking at those memories of me and my husband. And I had to reframe my mindset that there was happiness there. This is a reminder for me that what happened at that day or a year ago. So I try to show my kids, like, look at these pictures, look at these memories. So I'm trying to help myself reframe, and it's been helpful, and it's helped me stay positive and be connected to my husband. And my friends have been just so helpful for me. And I do struggle to talk about it, and I do catch myself if I'm going through something. This is the person I would have reached out to. This is my husband. I would have reached out to him. So I have to reach out maybe to a friend. And still, it's so hard to do that. And also, I would have reached out to that friend that I did lose. And I want to reach out to them, and they're gone too. So back to social media. I think finding a Facebook, a friends, a soul group, people who are like-minded. Of course, people I've never met before who are so willing to give that support and they understand. And just as well, years, I've been in touch with friends, people on social media who I've never met, but we connected, we felt empathy for each other. And social media does have its positive aspect to it, of group chats and finding your soul, searching for your soul. And it's been great.
This is Deanna signing. And what I like about Facebook is they have the memories feature on Facebook. And sometimes you forget about memories that happened last year and they pop up and it's just like, oh, and it could be even of a person that you lost previously that's no longer with us. So again, there are pros and cons because that could also be activating as well. So we have to be prepared ahead of time because that could just pop up and you might not be in the frame of mind to be able to tolerate that. But again, it's more like it's part of our emotional surgery. Emotional surgery can be more difficult than physical surgery at times. Physical surgery, we can heal from it quickly. Well, over time, it depends on the person and their body. But emotional surgery, I mean, it can really take you through some things. And it's really based on our determination to move through it, that emotional experience. And as we're grieving, we can be quite vulnerable. And it's a painful process as we're healing through it. I mean, it is a journey and it can, you think you're sewed up and you're ready, the infection's gone, and then something else activated, and then the wound is open again. And that can be an ongoing journey and process of opening and closing. And so, again, when we're thinking about that infected wound, it may not be fully healed. And yet we're trying to force ourselves to be on someone else's timeline of recovery instead of our own. So it really makes me think, what are some strategies that we can employ to support someone who's experiencing grief, both in the immediate aftermath and as time progresses? And simultaneously, we have to also consider, are we in the right place to tell people what those strategies of grief are? Are we to give them the tips? Because we all experience grief differently. So, how can we address that? What do you think?
I have a question for the audience, really. As you just mentioned recently, Deanna, people are so scared. If I comment, is she going to cry on me? Is she going to break down? Why do people feel that way? Why are you so scared to see someone else cry? What's wrong with crying in general? I really ask the audience. I'm curious your thoughts. It's okay to allow someone to cry. Let them go through their tears. Let them sit with their grief and just sit with them. That's all they need. They just need someone to be there to listen to them. You could ask, do you want advice? Would you like me to just sit here? Ask this person, communicate with them through it. I think that's important. Those are the only strategies I could think of. And you're right. Oh, well, there's no book to say this is what you should do, A, B, C through Z. There's nothing you can do. The stages of grief are there, sure, but everyone is different. Maybe if someone starts from the bottom or goes to the top or starts in the middle or starts with angry or starts with shock. There's so many various stages of grief that everyone goes through their own path, and there's no right answer. Some people are so shocked. As I mentioned, as I was pregnant, I was numb. Once my baby was born, I want to say maybe 4 months later, after that was a long time to be so numb, to shut myself out. And it took a longer time to let everyone in to see me cry. And it's okay to not be okay and to find people who I can reconnect with and have permission to be myself and come out. It really does take time.
This is Deanna signing. I see a comment from the audience, and thank you, audience, for your comments. Okay. And I see Mary. Yes, it's okay to cry. Absolutely. We need to normalize be like crying. It's okay to cry when we need to, and just have someone's physical presence near us instead of being so awkward about it. Oh no, you're crying. I'm a little bit uncomfortable with the crying. You got to stop crying. Yikes! Why are you? Ooh, I'm allergic to this. Why are you crying? Oh my God, I should just pat them. I'm not sure what to do. Like we have to just calm down. Your physical presence is enough. You can be quiet. Sometimes you don't have to say anything. It's just like Marianne said, just being there, just being present, supportive by actively listening. And okay, and what the person most needs anyway might be just your silence and physical presence. And that's more important than words, to be quite frank with you. You don't have to say a laundry list of things in order to support the other person. Sometimes you don't have to say anything at all. You can just your approach is important, Marianne.
Wanted to add one more thing. Just like I said, people with grief, it's just losing that person is just a shock. And my parents, they immediately came to me and say, "What do you need? You need food? Have you eaten yet? Okay, well, all right, we're here. We're going to stay with you. We'll sleep with you for a while. We'll stay in your house for a while." It was definitely overwhelming. And I still get chills remembering my parents just showing up for me. And thinking about the funeral, people coming up to me were just amazing. I'm amazed at how many people came to show up for Mickey and still getting chills just thinking about it. So the best thing you can do when you see someone going through grief or loss, just show up for them. Just be there. Bring them food, please. That's the best idea because we don't think about eating in that moment, especially from the get-go. Bring food. Like, hey, I'm coming over. I'm gonna go grocery
Yes.
shopping. What do you need? Like, I can bring you a pile of food. I'm gonna go clean your house for you. Do you want to clean your bathroom? I got it. Just simple tasks like that. Everyday things that we are not doing. It's just a simple ask of what do you need? I'm like, well, I don't know what I need. I'm kind of overwhelmed. Just show up. You're like, okay, well, I'm going to bring these things for you. I'm like, oh, well, actually, yeah, I did need that. So yeah, just do what you got to do.
This is Deanna signing. And it can be hard for me when a person asks me what I need from them. It can be hard for me to actually identify what that is. I have a list of things and it's just like, oh, I can't meet those needs. And it's like, I don't want you to add to my grief by telling me what you can't do. Okay. Why did you take time asking me the question then? So again, just tell me what you can give me, whatever is in your capacity. Okay. Yes, Florence. Florence signing. Yes, right. For me, the first day after my mom passed away, several people came to visit me and brought food and flowers. I mean, I couldn't eat, they encouraged me to eat. And really, I didn't do that for 2 days. And so sometimes people would say, hey, I would ask people to check on me and they didn't. And that made me change. It changed me. I realized that they weren't really my friends. They weren't there in my moment of need. And so it would be good if people are there for people to make time for them is the best time. Because I mean, I was alone. I was just asking people, like, I don't want to beg for someone to check in on me. If you care for me, I don't want to have to beg for that attention. I mean, I check in on people from time to time, especially if they've lost someone. I'll check in to see how they're doing. And in my culture, if a person, loses their parent, one of their parents, you give them money when you see them at the funeral. In my culture, there's also no, we don't have, people don't usually have insurance to cover funerals. And so it's family and friends monetary donations that cover the funeral cost. And I guess some people didn't know that in my tribe. Or what I mean is, people from my culture today, texting me about my mom passing away at the age that she did and what that means. And, basically like I would give money to help with different funeral expenses for them as well. Um, so again, just thinking culturally and, just doing what you can. But again, just checking on folks, asking, supporting them, supporting the other person that's left. And I mean, and I'm still grieving myself and I'm still supporting other people who are grieving too. So that's another part of it as well. And that's tough, especially again with cultural considerations. So for me, I go back home perhaps, let's see, I would say for the fifth memorial celebration of my mom's life. I didn't know that was happening. My dad informed me for the fifth memorial celebration. So I went back to celebrate her life. And my sister, stopped using a certain wrap, which is again cultural. Um, so you have to stop wearing a certain color, a certain wrap, and that's fine. So we adhere to that. I'm still wearing my black wrap, even though they have stopped. And this is Deanna signing. So we have to remind ourselves to continue doing the things that really resonate with us when it comes to the person or our family that we lost. And even with the tribes, and you mentioned the hair wraps and the garb, and keeping the spirit of her with you. And I see two other comments. Okay, Amy saying that yes, I agree. We have to do something for the person's family, absolutely. And another comment, Maggie Appel, yeah, unfortunately, grief is an ongoing journey. Yes, and that is something that is difficult to stop. So we have to talk about it like we're doing now. And I hope that with this conversation, it's a conversation starter within our community to stop with just that almost conspiracy of silence around grief And we have to break that cycle of trauma by openly talking about it and honoring that individual that we lost and talking about that person, because it makes it worse to not talk about them. The person's gone and we just move on with our lives and forget about them and don't acknowledge they were here. And then people around us not allowing us to talk about it and grieve so that we can heal collectively. That's not what we want to do. So we want to make this an ongoing healthy dialogue. So thank you, both for being willing to be vulnerable and share about your experiences, and hope, and even reaching out to other family and friends and other folks who are going through grief. And hopefully, if you all are hearing this, you can, apologize for basically pushing folks away, not opening that door. And so it's not too late to take accountability for not being there or not recognizing this, even if it is 5 years later. It's never too late because we're never stopping our grief process. It's okay. We get to decide, you know, what that looks like and how long that is. It's not like a list of things. It's like, okay, it's a check mark. We're done. No, 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 no. We are working through this. So again, honoring folks' trauma, honoring their grief process. And are there any last words from you, Florence or Marianne, before we wrap up?
Think a little bit. Go ahead, Florence.
Me? Okay. I just want to say thank you. Thank you for inviting me to this panel discussion and for this dialogue. It's actually helping me. And I didn't cry, so I have to pat myself on the back for that because, I want to do something more just crying. I mean, yes, I go to therapy and I share about these experiences and I do cry there. So I just want to pat myself on the back for the way I've been able to share and let you all know too this little thought. If you have any friends or acquaintances that who have lost someone, just be there for them, for that person. And maybe you'll be that person tomorrow. You just don't know if that will be you. So I just want to put that little tip out there for our audience members. And this is Deanna signing. Thank you for sharing that, Florence. Yes, Marianne.
I really want to say thankful. I'm thankful for you, Deanna, for opening up this platform, this space for us to go ahead and say something. And we can just share our stories, share our feelings, share our experiences, and others can say, like, yeah, I just I'm learning something today. I can see where this is happening and what's going on for you and how to support others. In order to break the cycle, we have to come together and break it together. So just being helpful with each other, I think that's really important, and just take care of each other. Remember, tomorrow's never promised. So you know how people say YOLO, you only live once, back in the college days, and laugh about that, YOLO. Yet until it's actually a reality, you don't know about tomorrow. You do not know what's planned tomorrow. I'm taking pictures of I remember taking pictures of my pregnancy and announcing that, and everyone's so happy, yet just no one was thinking about the funeral or the loss. So you don't know. Our life is so precious. YOLO. You have to keep going. I have to think about my kids. Every day is so precious. And we have to keep going and find the positivity and keep working out, or just, letting your mind flow and taking the time to be with friends and thinking about my friends I did lose, for that friend I lost for about who's been gone for 5 years. And I appreciate what's happening, and yet at the same time, it happened, and I might think about why and questioning, why did this happen? Why is this happening to me? And accept this is the reality. So thank you so much for the space.
This is Deanna signing, and I do want to ask our audience about your thoughts before we close this session. Audience on Facebook as well, feel free to drop comments on the post as well. I know that you all, may be touched by some of these stories. Anyone want to share? Anyone on Zoom as well? Feel free to go ahead and share. Okay, you can unmute yourself, and we will have an interpreter who will come on screen to interpret for you if you like. Okay, you can type in the chat as well if you like. Marianne?
I have my dog right here. You can see in the corner. Just let you know my dog is in my corner, just peeking through. And my dog's like, "What's that? What's that over there?" So I know he blends in with the background, but I just wanted to mention that.
That's fine. Okay, I guess there is no one who wants to come on camera or unmute to share any comments. So, thank you all so much for taking time to be vulnerable, to share about your journey, and share what showcase healing the soul looks like, and for all to see. You're already normalizing and hopefully helping others learn to normalize and move with their grief as well and live like this, and know that even if they lose someone close to them, it that doesn't have to be the end of the story. They can make a big difference by supporting other people and sharing their grief, and also be a living testimony to others as well. And you all were a testimony too. So thank you for sharing and showing that this is what it looks like, and just sharing parts of your narratives and keeping your stories alive, even through your children, friends, and family. So, again, thank you all for taking time out of your busy schedules to contribute to this conversation. And thank you, audience members. This show would not be possible without all of you all. And thank you to our interpreters too, who are willing to take time to voice for our panelists as well. Thank you for your work. And captionists, thank you so much for providing us accessibility through captions. And then please feel free to share this with other people after this as well. You can repost, feel free to share freely. Thank you everyone for joining, and have a great night. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you. Have a good night.